diplomats are not the only moves targeting Africa. Sweeping new travel restrictions are also in place, but some African nations are fighting back. Ghana is among those hit by Washington's new visa rules. In response, it is boosting travel ties with other nations.
What happens when the world's most powerful passport starts to lose its shine, and smaller nations decide they've had enough? That's the quiet but significant shift unfolding between the United States and parts of Africa. In Ghana, the impact is immediate. Washington's new visa restrictions have tightened entry for Ghanaian travelers to the U.S., reducing tourist, business, and academic visas to single-entry permits valid for just 3 months. For a country with strong ties to the U.S., the decision stings. The change came only weeks after President Donald Trump returned to the White House, reviving and expanding travel policies that once drew global criticism. Ghana is not alone. Similar rules have been placed on Cameroon, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. In parallel, the U.S. has enacted full entry bans on citizens from several African states, including Chad, the Republic of Congo, Eritrea, Libya, Somalia, and Sudan. According to a leaked U.S. State Department cable, the list could grow, with as many as 36 countries at risk of future bans. For Ghana, the consequences are more than just inconvenience at airports. In 2023, the nation received $4.6 billion in remittances from the U.S., money sent by Ghanaians working abroad. It's the second highest figure in Africa after Nigeria. Any barrier that makes travel harder could, in time, choke a vital economic lifeline. But Ghana's government, led by President John Mahama, is not waiting to see how deep the impact might run. Instead, it is charting a different course. In the past months, Ghana has signed a series of visa waiver agreements with countries across the global south, including Colombia, Mozambique, Dominica, and São Tomé and Príncipe. Earlier deals with Morocco have already allowed Ghanaians to travel visa-free there, and officials say more agreements are in the pipeline. The goal, according to Mahama's administration, is ambitious. Make the Ghanaian passport one of the most powerful in the developing world. To achieve this, the government is pairing expanded travel access with stricter border security aimed at preventing misuse by criminal networks, an acknowledgement that easier travel also carries risks. Ghana's diplomatic pivot reflects a broader trend across Africa. Faced with Western restrictions, several nations are turning inward and southward, strengthening regional and intercontinental ties instead of depending on the old global order. Kenya recently dropped visa requirements for most African nations. Tanzania now allows Angolan citizens to enter visa-free. Rwanda has gone further, offering visa-free access to all African nationals. Benin, too, grants a 90-day stay to any African Union passport holder. Analysts believe this momentum could lead to a continent-wide Pan-African e-visa system, enabling freer movement of people, goods, and ideas, and perhaps, over time, a shift in economic power. The message from African capitals is pointed. If one door closes, others will be built, right at home. And Ghana, with its expanding network of visa-free partners, intends to be part of that new reality. Ghana's push for broader travel freedoms isn't just about convenience or national pride. It's a calculated response to a shifting global balance. As the US and some European states tighten entry rules, Africa's political leaders are searching for ways to reduce dependency on traditional power centers. President Mahama's administration sees travel access as a form of leverage. The more destinations Ghanaians can reach without US or EU approval, the less vulnerable the country becomes to policy shocks from Washington or Brussels. Visa-free partnerships with countries like Colombia or Mozambique may not match the scale of the US economy, but they open doors for new trade routes, cultural exchanges, and tourism flows that were previously underdeveloped. It's also about sending a message that Ghana and its neighbors will not simply accept being cut off from key markets without seeking alternatives. Mahama has publicly stressed that mobility is opportunity and that restricting it can have long-term consequences for development. These moves come as U.S. policy under President Trump takes on a sharper edge toward Africa. His administration's travel bans and visa reductions are framed in Washington as tools for security and migration control. But in African capitals, they are often viewed as punitive. disproportionately affecting ordinary citizens rather than the criminal or security threats they claim to target. The leaked State Department memo, warning that as many as 36 African nations could face future bans, has deepened those concerns. While the list is unofficial, it has already prompted several countries to explore reciprocal measures or alternative partnerships. The economic stakes are high. Ghana's reliance on remittances means that even small barriers to travel can ripple through household incomes. Many families depend on money sent from relatives in the U.S. to pay for education, healthcare, and housing. If those flows slow down because travel becomes more complex or expensive, it could strain both communities and the national economy. But beyond economics, there is a growing sentiment across the continent that Africa must control its own mobility. This is why the idea of a Pan-African e-visa, a single travel document allowing citizens of African Union member states to move freely, is gaining momentum. Advocates say it could transform the continent by boosting intra-African tourism, making cross-border business simpler, and fostering a stronger sense of unity. Examples already exist. Rwanda's open-door policy for all African nationals has been hailed as a model, showing that lifting restrictions can increase tourism and investment without triggering the security crises often cited as reasons for tight borders. Kenya and Benin have also seen positive results after relaxing visa rules for African travelers. Ghana's recent moves fit into this wider shift, a quiet but steady reorientation of Africa's travel map. The more nations that sign on, the stronger the continent's bargaining position becomes when negotiating with global powers. This is not simply about bypassing the US or Europe. It's about creating a world where Africa's connections are no longer defined by the choices of others. The changing travel landscape is more than a logistical shift. It's a symbol of a deeper political realignment. For decades, African mobility was shaped largely by the visa policies of the West. Students, business people, and tourists often had to navigate complex, costly, and uncertain application processes just to set foot in the US or Europe. That imbalance is now being challenged. Ghana's latest visa waivers with countries in the global south mark a deliberate turn toward multipolarism, a world where influence is spread across many centers rather than concentrated in a handful of capitals. By linking arms with nations across Africa, Latin America, and Asia, Ghana is diversifying its partnerships, hedging against the political risk of relying too heavily on any single power. For Washington, the new restrictions are framed as necessary to protect U.S. borders and ensure compliance with security standards. But critics note that they risk pushing Africa further into the arms of emerging economies that are eager to deepen ties without imposing the same political or bureaucratic hurdles. The long-term impact could be profound. If Africa succeeds in building a network of visa-free agreements within the continent and across the global south, the traditional leverage held by the West over African mobility will weaken. In such a scenario, U.S. visa restrictions might lose much of their bite. Already the examples are piling up. Rwanda's open borders policy for Africans has been widely praised. Kenya's removal of visa requirements for most African countries has strengthened its position as a regional hub. Benin's 90-day visa-free access for all African Union passport holders is inspiring similar moves elsewhere. These policies, once seen as ambitious experiments, are quickly becoming benchmarks for African cooperation. In Ghana, the vision goes beyond travel. Officials hope that increased freedom of movement will spark more trade deals, boost tourism revenue, and attract skilled professionals from across the continent. Paired with strict anti-fraud and border control measures, they believe the benefits will outweigh the risks. The message to Ghanaians and Africans at large is clear. Closed doors in one part of the world do not mean the journey stops. Instead, the path simply changes direction, toward partners who see mutual benefit rather than one-sided control. Whether this will shift global power dynamics remains to be seen. But for now, the momentum is firmly with those who are building bridges, not walls. The next decade could define whether Africa becomes a truly self-determined player in global mobility or remains tethered to the policies of distant powers. If you've been following this story, we want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Africa can create a powerful, united travel system of its own? If you support this work, like this video, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future updates on Africa's changing place in the world.